Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Olson with the National Tile Contractors Association. And again, I want to welcome you and thank you for taking time out of your day and your busy schedule to attend the webinar. Today's webinar is Take It Outside with Xteriors, and it's sponsored by Daltile. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind you that during the webinar, you will be muted. Please use the questions area on your computer to type in your questions. We will answer your questions at the end of this presentation. If the audio on your computer is poor, call the number on the invite to the webinar and listen on your phone. As a reminder, all of our webinars are available to watch at any time on the NTCA YouTube channel shortly after the webinar is presented. This will give you easier access to watch and share all current and past programs at your convenience. All right. I'm really excited about today's speaker. Today's speaker, Phil Graves, is Daltile Sales Director for their Exteriors program of outdoor living products. Phil has been in the world of outdoor building materials for 20 years and has been on countless job sites across the US and Canada. He's a 1994 graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. I want to take a moment to thank Phil for his service in the Army. He spent 5 years active duty, and he left the Army as a captain. And thank you very much, Phil. I look forward to a great presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for that great introduction. A little bit unexpected there on the military service portion, but I appreciate the sentiment. Thanks everybody for attending. Nice to see the membership of the NTCA taking advantage of some of the resources that the organization provides its membership. So as Jim said, my name is Phil Graves. I've been with Daltile for 2.5 years, but have been in the hardscape industry or outdoor living industry for just about 20 years now. And we've got some interesting things to talk about today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And would also remind you, as Jim said, save those questions or type those questions in as we go. Because I tend to see, a lot of questions when presenting the outdoor living type optional materials and products to people that are more used to working in indoor environments. So I'm going to remove these. The number one point to get across, I think, to this audience is that the outdoor living offers an excellent way or an opportunity for you guys to extend your existing business. And the main reason being right now, especially in large part, really primarily thanks to the emergence of COVID and the subsequent pandemic that kept a lot of people home, kept a lot of people off vacations, kept a lot of people out of the bars and restaurants, and kept people a little bit more flush with cash than they're used to because of recouping all that discretionary budget that they would have spent on vacations and local entertainment. And then once they got inside the house together, especially if a family, they found themselves on top of each other in a home that was probably with an open floor plan, because that's been popular for the last 20 years. And then they're all doing Zoom and WebExes and Teams meetings and GoToMeeting, for their schooling and for their offices that they're not attending currently. So everybody's on top of each other. Everybody's making noise in an open floor plan, so people started looking outside to really kind of find some breathing room and some quiet space. So over the last 2 years, outdoor living, which has been a growth market for 25 years anyway, has just exploded. So the homeowners are investing in outdoor living environments more than at any time in the history of this entire industry. And what's good news for everyone on this call, myself included, is that the aesthetic trend right now is to have more of an indoor type fit and finish or indoor quality aesthetic that transitions to the outdoor space rather than have more your natural stone, some of your ledge stone walls, concrete segmental retaining walls, some of those more rustic, more outdoorsy, I guess, looking products, concrete pavers, for instance. Even the concrete paver trend is towards more large format and modern looks. So that has become a pretty neat time in the world of outdoor living, and especially building materials for outdoor living. So there are tons of all-weather solutions available and we're going to talk about some of them here. These three pictures that you see on the screen, by the way, are all of the same property, I believe Jupiter Island, Florida. And these pictures come from an awards submission. In the more outdoor living world or the hardscape world, there's an annual trade show called Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's coming up towards the end of October, the 20th through the 22nd. And at that show, they award, some just some design awards to recognize people for their great work and to help promote that type of work to other people in the industry. So I was chosen to be one of the judges for the Porcelain entrance. I think there was about 25 total entrants between residential and commercial. But you can just see in this picture so many different materials. You've got your 2 centimeter thick porcelain pavers out here for, believe it or not, driveway and parking pads. And then you go over here and you've got your pool tile. You go up to the top picture and you can see what looks like a very large format porcelain, like a panoramic porcelain, or perhaps some sort of natural quartzite. But just lots of different materials out here that make for a really spectacular outdoor environment, while still being very hardy to different weather conditions. Although Florida, not too much of a worry. So trends in the outdoor living market or the hardscape market. Hardscapes, by the way, is a fairly significantly large business. We're $3.5 billion wholesale annually. That's a decent amount of money, and that's growing quickly. So there's expanding interest in outdoor living environments, not just commercially, but also residentially or vice versa. But the growth of mixed use development has really been on the rise. You see a lot of, pop-up bistro eating outside of restaurants when the weather's decent. Or I even saw on some of my travels these little plastic like igloos, little domes, so people could have an individual seating area outside. And then entertaining, shopping, rooftop amenities. If you look at this picture on the right, that's a rooftop in Long Island City, New York. And that's like almost 18,000 square feet of porcelain pavers on a pedestal system, which is really taking off and taking the market by storm, and something that's well within the capabilities of any tile contractor. So this ends up, it really adds up to a revolutionary time for material options for hardscape applications. I'll get to a slide that shows you some more traditional hardscape materials and how porcelain compares in a couple minutes, but I also wanted to point out this lower left-hand picture. That's at the Scott Aquarium at the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Nebraska. Now that's gone through 3 winters already, and that's a direct bond application to a concrete slab, and it looks absolutely perfect. Certainly way better than some of the natural stone and some of the concrete pavers and some of the stamped concrete that they've got sort of in that same general area in the zoo. So it's holding up extremely well, even with the freeze-thaw climates of Omaha, a bonded application. They've got the expansion joints transmitting through the pavers the way they're supposed to, and everything's holding up absolutely beautiful. And a quick quote here, just so you know that this is no longer a luxury, right, in the outdoor living high-rise apartment industry. It's basically a necessity, because on a communal rooftop deck, everybody in the building can have a great view and sort of a piece of the penthouse without having to pay for the penthouse apartment. So what that does is it helps the apartment to lease out more units, because it's a great closing tool, right? You walk around, here's the room, yada, 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 and I'll hop in the elevator, let me show you this. And they go up there, and not only is it beautiful with a beautiful view, but it's a place for the people that are really a member of that apartment community to go up there and gather and make friends, and go swimming, do some grilling, whatever, maybe a rooftop bar environment out there. So what that ends up doing then is it creates neighbors, right? It creates relationships, and then it creates memories. So those people will release typically, rather than looking for the next best deal or the place to move. They don't want to move away from their friends, right? So even in an apartment atmosphere, having this communal area on the rooftop does something not only for the ownership, although it makes it easier for them to pay for it, but for the residents, right? It improves their experience as someone who lives in that building. And then there's just tons of applications. So, you'll hear me talking about pavers quite a bit in this because it's really the thing that kind of has led the charge for the tile industry to run outside. But there are so many different applications. Like we just talked about rooftops, balconies, patios, common areas. It's great for neighborhood common areas because the ease of maintenance is so outstanding for top quality porcelain paver and other outdoor suitable vertical products. But kitchens, fire features, work from home, driveways, and porticoches. See over here, that's the Ritz-Carlton in Miami. It has something like 9,000 square feet of 2cm porcelain pavers bonded to a concrete slab for their entire porticoche and the drive up and the drive back out again. Community amenity centers, pool decks, walkways. Here you go, vertical surfaces. These are all thin porcelain panels on this building over here on the left. Again, you see pool water-like tiles. Vertical surfaces just goes crazy with opportunity. Fountains and water feature seating walls, cladding. That's what this is up here. And then, I think that's right on the heels of this sort of porcelain paver revolution that's happening in the hardscape industry right now is going to be outdoor countertops. Because right now, most people are putting in either a natural stone of some sort, the denser, the better. But it takes a beating outside. It's going to have to be sealed. And if you want to do it right, you should probably put it under a covered area and cover the thing up at night, depending on your climate. Or people are pouring specialty concrete countertops, which have all the same issues that a concrete pavement has over time in weather. So with the advent of more large format and porcelain options for countertops for outside, now you can have a countertop that looks like your indoor marble or whatever you happen to have, but a really delicate stone that is more durable in an outdoor environment than anything currently on the market. And then here not just us, but the industry at large. There's just an incredible amount of products available for all these various applications. Here's your grill island built into the pool, a beautiful feature wall for a fireplace, submerged tile over here. It just goes on and on. Obviously the pavers, but there are so many different material options and product options to build outdoor living environments that are not only more beautiful than they ever have been before, but also more durable at the same time. So let's take a look at some of that durability. As you look across the top of the chart here, you can see porcelain pavers versus some of the legacy outdoor decorative flooring materials. That would be clay brick pavers, cast in place concrete, which is typically going to be like a stamped and stained, interlocking concrete pavers, and then natural stone. Now, natural stone is the most difficult to compare, like for like, because there are just such a huge variety of natural stones, and even within the natural stone, the quality levels, the 3 different levels of travertine, for example, an inch cut flagstone versus 2 inches flagstone has completely different performance characteristics. But in general, we can compare fairly well. And then down the left side of this chart are the various performance characteristics that any material has to adhere to some level in order to be a suitable outdoor flooring material or paving material, and certainly as a suitable decorative one. So, what's one of the top on the list? Stain resistance. If the stuff is going to get stained because every time somebody spills outside, which happens more outside than it does inside, then it's not going to be decorative for very long. And you can see that porcelain, it just doesn't stain. And I'm going to skip a bunch of things here real quick, but I will come back to these. Here's why it doesn't stain. Because a ceramic material, in order to be certified as porcelain, the top of the chain, and most of you guys probably know this already, but maybe don't know it about other materials, it has to absorb less than 0.5% of water. Now that's industry standard. Now, concrete pavers have their own industry association, the Interlocking Concrete Pavement Institute, ICPI, and their standards indicate that they have to absorb less than 5% water. That's not the same, right? That's actually 10 times the amount that porcelain is allowed to absorb. And look, they're tied for basically the best. And again, natural stone is really all over the map, but cast in place concrete, if you actually have less than 10, you're lucky. And then clay brick pavers are less than 8, which might seem a little bit surprising since they are a fired clay product as well. But a lot of them tend to have, a lot lot bigger holes that you can see on the surface, so the water will get in there. But because it doesn't absorb water, it doesn't absorb this other stuff either. So if the molecules of water won't go in there, oil certainly aren't going to. So it just doesn't stain, and then it will not fade. Now, of all these things, you've got natural stone and concrete pavers kind of dominate the decorative landscape. Obviously, poured concrete is everywhere, but for decorative, which is what we're competing for, these are really the two areas that are the two products that dominate that market. And concrete pavers, when it comes to fading, they fade, and they fade quickly. And when they do fade, they don't look nearly like the cover of the catalog anymore. So as far as long-term beauty, porcelain really knocks it out of the park. Scratch resistance, porcelain is an 8 on the Mohs scale of hardness. 10 is a diamond. So very little can scratch porcelain, including dragging your metal lawn furniture across it, or your base of your chimenea across it. Freeze-thaw resistance, it's freeze-thaw proof, because the only thing that hurts a building material in freeze-thaw cycling is when water gets inside the material, freezes, it expands 10% and it pushes out against that material. So it starts to spall the surface, create fissures and cracks inside the surface, which eventually lead to complete deterioration of certain materials. Not porcelain, because nothing gets in there. So de-icing salt, de-icing salt doesn't hurt porcelain either, because the salt, when it absorbs into the ice that it melts and turns into water, it doesn't percolate down inside to the porcelain. It doesn't absorb. So you just get it off the surface and it's totally fine. Acid resistance, if you pop open the lid of a bottle of muriatic acid and pour it on a concrete paver or your stamped and stained concrete, it's going to foam up like crazy. The foam is going to turn the color of the pigment that's in the concrete because it's eating it all out of the surface. And then when you finally rinse it off, you're going to see all the aggregate that's beneath the surface. It used to have a nice tight face of an even color, a nice color blend. When you burn it with acid, now all you see is the rocks, right, that are inside the concrete paver. You could pop that same lid on that same bottle of muriatic acid and pour it on a porcelain paver, and it's not going to make a bubble. It's going to look like you're pouring water on it. So incredibly, incredibly durable material. You don't ever have to seal it, because basically it can't be sealed. Every other one is basically recommended, except for clay brick, because I don't think that can be very well sealed either. And then here's one I really like to point to, because the concrete paver industry used to be very boastful about how much stronger they are by industry standard than cast in place concrete, 2.5 times as strong. And then here we come in, and our weakest ones tested out at about 34,000 PSI. So the strongest ones were around about 68,000 PSI. So absolutely unbelievable. And then the best news of all, maybe, all this comes in a 9 pounds per square foot package compared to some of these others that are much heavier. That means that the freight likes it. It's friendly to the freight. You can ship it farther, and it's friendly to labor as well, so you don't tire out your crews as fast. The concrete paver guys are really starting to move over to porcelain just for that very reason. So we have all these different products, thick ones and the hundreds and hundreds of thin ones. So when do you go thick? And basically outside, if you're going on raised flooring, you have to go thick, because a thin tile is not strong enough to be spanning pedestals that are 24 inches apart. For vehicular traffic, go thick always, or at least as much as humanly possible, just because it's that much stronger. And then for a flexible base installation, which I'll tell you about in a few slides, always thick on that too, because the thin tile is just not strong enough. So basically, if you're going outside and you're doing decorative flooring, we'll try to lead with a 2 centimeter thick product, just because most of them on the market have a very high dynamic coefficient of friction compared to a lot of their thin counterparts. And just that breaking strength makes them far more likely to survive a lot longer in that environment. Now, take a step back. If you lead with a thick, you still got some thin options in your back pocket, so that's good. And we've got some products that have stepwise as a technology that makes the slip and skid resistance higher, but still is very easy to clean. And then us, and I'm sure other companies as well, have structured or textured face thin tiles that have the same slip and skid resistance as their thicker counterparts. So those are good options to install outside. And then you can back up even further and say, well, it's an outdoor pavilion, it's completely covered, nobody's really going to ever use it when the weather's bad. all right, you can pretty much put whatever you want in there. But as you go outside and you've got the opportunity to have a wet pavement, you just have to keep that dynamic coefficient of friction in mind. So lead with thick, know what your thin ones are in the back pocket. If you go with thin, you got to bond it to a slab. And then on our website, just a little commercial here, there's this button on Daltile.com/Xteriors, when to select 2 centimeter pavers versus their thin counterparts. And there's just a little bit more detail around there. So that's a resource that you guys can check out. All right, this is the part that I like the best, and is a part that, you know, can maybe get you guys thinking about what are some opportunities out there for my business to take advantage of and to explore and see if it's something we can add to our service basket. So basically, anything you can do with a concrete paving slab, anything you can do with a dimensional cut natural stone, you can do with a porcelain paver. Their breaking strength is through the roof, and they've got the good dynamic coefficient of friction. So you can lay it with adhesive, traditional, right? You can put it on pedestals. Here's something, and I'm going to show you slides on a few of these to go into a little bit more detail, but the overhead decking, I think, is an incredibly exciting market because, well, I'll tell you here in a couple slides. I don't want to spoil the thing. And then these 3 across the bottom are just sort of different levels of what we call a flexible base installation. And this one even could be as simple as probably not something you're going to want to do for customers, or they're not going to ask you to do, but from a DIY perspective, you just go out and plop it right on the grass and it'll settle in over a few weeks. You know, it might move over time. You can pick them up and move them, but make a stepping stone application. People have been doing that for years, for sure. And then this is an interesting slide because it is considered a national average for all-in installation costs. And you've got at the bottom your concrete, right? So we don't really try to compete against that too much. But you get to scored or stamped concrete, you're up to 17 bucks a foot on a national average. And you can see that the porcelain ones were very competitive with that. And then you've got, you know, interlocking concrete pavers. So the theme is we're about 10% higher than concrete pavers and 10% lower than natural stone, although that natural stone can be all over the map, right? Import costs are getting higher. The quality of the stone is going to have a massive impact on the material portion of that installation price. But I think what's more interesting is we did this in 2019. And I believe we updated it, and it was about the same in mid-2020. But as of right now, the price premium over concrete pavers is shrinking dramatically because there have been so many outages and back orders in the concrete paver world that the manufacturers naturally don't have the supply to keep up with the demand. So they're beginning to, you know, step that price up to see where that pain point becomes in the market, that they're not getting the orders anymore. But right now they've got more orders than they can supply. So the ones that you're most familiar with first, on grade direct bond, and here again is another picture of that Ritz-Carlton. Couple points about this, but first, both commercial and residential. So residential drives are a great opportunity here. It doesn't have to just be for vehicular traffic, but if you have vehicular traffic, this is the way you have to go, which can be either bonded to an existing slab or a thick mortar bed installation. Now, I'm not sure who else offers this, but you know, since we do, I'm sure that more in the industry either already do or soon will, but we've got an all-inclusive Xteriors warranty for both moderate and freeze-thaw climates, where you can opt for 10, 15, or 25-year different installation packages. Obviously, the materials get more expensive as you go, but the point is you have to have the right setting material and the right grout material for outdoor environments, especially if you're in a freeze-thaw environment, because without them, water will percolate through the joint. It'll get underneath the tile. It'll freeze and expand 10%, and then there goes the bond. With these warranty options, up to 25 years, we'll write you a full system that if something pops from the bed and it was installed, you know, with the right materials and the right methods, you get new setting material, new grout, new tile, and the labor to replace the whole thing. So very confident in the quality of the package, right? The pavers, the setting material, and the grout. Now, come back to this picture just a little bit. I read up on this installation, and these are all specialty cuts. They're all cut down to a 9x18 size. Now, part of that is aesthetic. Somebody liked the way it looked, but why else would that be? When you go outside, you have to slope your pavement. And sometimes you've got multiple grade changes. Two slopes come together here to channel something down this way, for instance. And even, typically 24x24 is the smallest. It's not the smallest one I know, but it's the smallest normal one that's really produced and out there available in large numbers. And the problem with a larger format tile is you can't bend it, right? When the ground bends, the tile's not going to bend. So in addition to an aesthetic desire here, and because they wanted to do a running bond that had a nice curve to it with the driveway, they also knew that they were going to have multiple grade changes. So a smaller paver helped them achieve that. So something to keep in mind when going outside is grade changes. Now I'm going to take what I just told you about grade changes, we're going to toss it right out the window, because when we look at raised flooring, okay, on a pedestal system, because it's an open jointed system, you don't have to put slope on the floor. Are you going to get some bird baths on the tiles when it rains? Yes, but you're not going to really be out there when it's raining either. So it cooks off really fast, but the vast majority of it goes through the joints. So the floor itself can be perfectly flat. We've never really had that opportunity with any type of outdoor hardscaping material other than a wood deck with open slats. In this case though, now, I mean, you can have what looks like a completely finished floor, but have it be perfectly flat with open joints. And then whatever your subgrade is, if it's a concrete slab, you just slope the slab and the pedestals compensate for the slope. Or you can have a permeable base underneath there where it's an open graded aggregate and water just percolates down, and that layer is deep enough and it's sloped underneath, so that the water that gets to the base of that system sort of runs to grade away from the house and then slowly percolates into the ground. But those are two options for a base material underneath a pedestal system. So what else is great besides having a perfectly flat floor for pedestals? You got ultimate access underneath the pavement. You can pick the thing up and put it back down. For any plumbing that you have to look at, electrical conduits, whatever, wires for your speaker system, and subgrade repairs. In fact, a lot of times, if it's a slab, it can crack and move, and you just adjust the pedestal up, put it back down. As long as the slab is structurally sound, continue to use it. And then this one sounds a little bit outlandish, but I promise you, I've experienced that it's not. Easy material swap out if design trends change. So, suddenly a blue paver is popular instead of a wood look paver. So pick up the wood look paver and replace it with a blue one. It's no big deal. But the other really nice thing about that is it really contributes to just how green of a building material porcelain pavers are, especially when you set them in a non-bonded application. Because they don't scratch, they don't stain, they don't fade, they basically don't age in outdoor environments. So as a material, if it's not bonded to a slab or you have to ruin it to replace it, but you can actually pick them up and stack them, you can use them somewhere else. So they're ultimately a reusable outdoor flooring material. Here we go, overhead decking. This one's so fun. Another huge market. And right now, the composite world, like your top brands like Trex and AZEK, they're all like 16 weeks in back order. So that means there's a huge demand for decks out there right now that's just going unfilled. And I think lumber is finally coming back down to the realm of reasonableness. But for a while there, I mean, it was more expensive than the composites were. So here we can put a porcelain raised deck or an overhead deck at roughly the same price as a high-end composite like a Trex or an AZEK. And then once it's down, it's not going to fade with time. It's not going to cup. Compared to wood, you don't have to sand it or stain it. You're not going to get a splinter from it. None of the fasteners are going to back out because there aren't any fasteners that bite you on the foot or ruin your flip-flop. And to achieve this, there is a couple different companies manufacturing underlayment systems. So you get fall-through protection. You could build right over 16-inch on center wood or steel decking. And in fact, very easy to partner up with someone who just a framer and then you come in and finish it with the top layer. But you can you can put like a joint compound in there, like a polymeric sand or some type of epoxy grout to make it basically impermeable. Or in this case, like with the pedestals, just leave it open jointed. Your wood deck was your composite deck was going to be open jointed anyway. Don't worry about the space below. If it's raining, people just won't use it for that little bit of time. But a really, really huge opportunity. You can see the deck industry is almost twice as big as the hardscapes industry. And then just a little detail. I'm sorry I can't zoom in for you guys in this case, but these are like custom fabricated steel trays, and they just cut the porcelain, the wood look porcelain pavers, and drop them in the tray, and then run a bead of construction adhesive in there so it doesn't rattle around, and you're done. You know, put a couple holes on the bottom of the steel tray and water can run out. It's a piece of cake. And here you go. Not the best picture, I understand. Obviously the landscaping's not in yet, but it was a recent one that I can talk to because I did some work on this job actually. Spent a day as a laborer out there making sure that I knew what I was talking about when I go around and instruct to different places in the industry. But this is a case where it's a flexible base, so it's compacted aggregate. I don't want to spend much time on it because it's probably the farthest away from what everybody's used to doing. But I do want to spend a little bit of time on it just to familiarize it with you as an opportunity, because it is a massive adjacent market to the indoor tile world, especially now that the tile industry is running outside kind of with a vengeance. You know, hiring people from the hardscape world, hiring people with a Rolodex from the hardscape world that can make fast introductions. The tile industry is going after outdoor living in a big way. And one of the reasons is because the hardscape world sort of started pulling the tile world into it in the US about 6 or 7 years ago by going out and looking for other products to distribute, and they found some porcelain pavers. The tile world wasn't doing a good job promoting it because they didn't know about sloping your material outside, the fact that you have to tell water where to go outside, freeze thaw issues, how to construct a flexible base in general, anything other than a concrete slab or a wet mortar bed. So this compacted aggregate base can either be permeable or impermeable. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. But it's a great option if pouring a slab or taking the time to do a wet mortar bed is cost prohibitive. So you can still get the look that you want with a different base detail. There's also immediate use. You don't have to pour the slab and wait for a couple of weeks. You should wait 28 days, of course, but wait for a couple of weeks to go out there and lay pavers on top of it. And then in all honesty, the skill part of this really comes in how to lay out, how to look at a pattern, how to set your tile properly with the right grout spacing. And the rest of it, the excavation, shooting a grade, all that, there's certainly skill there too, but it's not a tremendous departure from what a lot of you have done in the past. And it doesn't require a whole lot of equipment either. And then once again, it's always possible to partner up, with someone who's good at base construction. So just to make you guys aware of that as an installation option. And then finally, vertical applications. Outdoor living is just sick with the potential square footage for vertical applications, because just like horizontal applications, you're going to get rained on, right? You're going to get leaves blowing against it. You're going to get some freeze thaw action out there. Just dirt and dust in general, outdoor detritus that's flying around out there. That stuff gets dirty, and most of the things that are out there currently, like a lot of your natural stones and concrete veneers, not that easy to clean. And if you have to use a harsh chemical, especially an acid-based one, to clean a specific type of stain, because that's how it works, this product cleans this chemical makeup stain. A lot of those acidic products will ruin concrete and be very harsh on a lot of natural stones as well. So some of the materials that we offer in the tile world in general offers for veneers and cladding are outstanding outdoor materials, because it saves on maintenance costs, it saves on maintenance headaches, it saves on maintenance uh-ohs when you put some muriatic acid on your concrete mantle on your fireplace. But you can see just lots of different applications we talked about already. Nice picture of sort of a glazed porcelain tile here as a fireplace surround. Just one of many options that look so much different than what most people are, agreeing to have stuck outside on on their outdoor fireplace, right? It's either going to be some sort of a thin paver, maybe a thin brick, or like a Eldorado or a Coronado stone, like a fake river rock made out of concrete. So we can bring a different look with skill sets that you already possess. For our program, a little bit of plug for Daltile right here. Sorry, Jim. Installation system support. So we've partnered with specific vendors for our Xteriors program, and that way we can be a single source for the entire installation, including tools. And then that way also we can have vendor support and come in and do some training on the job site training, conduct a webinar. Maybe NTCA can set up a webinar for how to do pedestals. That would be great. Probably already have. But for our program, we've got the stone decks for the raised decking, Ruby tools for splitters and vacuums and suction cups, etc. This is a cool product. It's basically a low recycled rubber pedestal. And you can just overlay an existing wood or composite deck with that product, and then you get to the edge, you raise the fascia board up to cover up that exposed side on the paver, and boom, new deck, no maintenance. Profilitech for our pedestals, and then Mapei right now is our partner for our setting and grout materials for direct bond applications. A little bit more Daltile stuff here, just so that you guys know. I mean, I know that the membership is scattered all across the country, and so are we. And we have competitors that are as well. But since it was our opportunity to provide this little block of instruction, we'll just say that not only do we have our outside sales reps, but we have a ton of architectural reps that are now being asked to call on landscape architects. So I'm going to skip down to this bolded bullet right here, qualified labor needed. What happens, as you guys probably know, on the inside jobs, same thing happens on the outside jobs. Okay, we love your solution, love your product, love the fact that it's going to last forever outside. Who's going to put it in? So we definitely want to partner with more and more contractors across the country, especially you guys that are taking the time out of what I'm certain are a busy day to look here for a new opportunity for your business. And we're doing the exact same thing. We're looking outside for a new opportunity for our business, and we need business partners, and probably most of all, installation business partners. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get together going forward. But you can see, we are continuing to train our internal sales staff, ARC reps, everybody, builder specialists. We're training our field force about some of these different installation types, about the things you have to think about when you go outside. So our field force is getting better and better and better at dealing with outdoor conditions and outdoor products. We'll sample you everything that we've got, of course. We're generating specs with the architects. Product availability, for the most part, pretty good. And this is a difficult time for everybody in every building material industry and basically every industry. But so far, so good. And with the 2CM pavers, we're doing a great job. And obviously, value engineering ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And then what are we doing on your behalf out there? Well, we've got CEU course for outdoor living products and 2CM pavers in general. This is actually a year old. That is now 4,500 graduates since November of 19. So that's a lot of people that are getting familiarized with the potential of products that they didn't know about before. They're actually superior to the ones that they've been specifying for the last 25 years. And then contractor education opportunities all the time, you name it. I mean, we're putting on classes all over the place. Then we've got the vendor support that can come out and help you guys, and job site assistance. We can put together webinars like this, but more training oriented, whether it's us giving it or partnership with our vendor suppliers. We can get large groups trained up quickly. And then leadership team, that's me in between beards, obviously. But contact information there. I'm going to leave this slide up for a couple of seconds because I think we're about at the end. Yeah, and the time tells me we're about at the end too. But here's who we have so far. There's me. I lead the program for North America for Daltile. There's my cell number. That's a direct number to me. My email address is on there. And then Fred Davis. See, my background's not tile. Fred's background is tile, and he's approaching 50 years with Daltile, and he's been in a ton of different positions in the company. He knows everybody in the organization. He's been a great support for this program. I'm certain some people on the call know Fred. But there's his contact information, direct cell, direct email. And then Greg Smith is a guy that used to be a customer of mine in the hardscape world. He actually beat me to the tile world by about 3.5 years and was working for a competitor. And when I took this position, he was sort of starting to try to develop a similar program in his own company, and called him up and said, no, let's run down the road together and go faster. And luckily he agreed. So he's been with us for almost 2 years now, but has a great hardscape background as well. So another guy that can, help educate our company and our customers, on some of the nuances of outdoor installation versus indoor installation. Guys, that's my final slide. I've been talking for about 40 minutes. I can't see anybody on the screen. I'm sitting in a hotel room. Hopefully I didn't drone on too much and you guys were able to pick something up. Again, all thanks to Jim Olson of the NTCA for setting this up and giving me the invitation. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who participated for your time. And hopefully we got some questions generated out of this. So Jim, I'll turn it back over to you and see where we go from here. Thanks, everybody.
Bill, you turned that into a bit of an infomercial, but lots of good information out there. Everybody understand we want to be technical out here and let you know the best products out there. So thanks for that, Phil. We do have some questions, so let's go.
Good.
The first question that I have, Phil, is how does the cost of grid system with porcelain pavers compare to natural wood or composite decking?
Okay, so the grid system on overhead decks, I think we're talking about. So the overall installed cost, if you do like a wood frame deck with that underlayment system, that hexagonal plastic grid underlayment system, and the porcelain pavers, you're going to come out to, depending on where we are in the marketplace right now, because composites have gone up, I'm going to say we're basically at price parity with a high-end composite, because with them, you also have a lot of the fasteners and specialty products that they require you to buy with their system. So we're basically at price parity with a high-end composite, while obviously having far superior performance characteristics and aesthetic value. But we're probably $6 to $9 a square foot over like a pressure-treated lumber.
All right, so real quick, Robert, if that wasn't an exact answer to your question, just type it in and let us know, and we can go a little deeper if we need to. Our next
please.
question, Phil, is for compacted base installations of your 2cm materials, do they need to set a perimeter of a concrete curb with a paver bonded to the curb to restrain the installation?
That's a great question. I'm so glad somebody asked something about compacted aggregate. Can you still see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try to go back. So if you look, can you see the compacted aggregate material picture?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I can't zoom in, but right here and right here is a plastic edge restraint. So I didn't want to go into too much detail about, construction detail about compacted aggregate installation. But you do need perimeter containment of some kind, and that can be a concrete curb, a concrete toe, an underground curb that you bound the outside tile to is certainly acceptable. In this case, it's a plastic edge restraint that has, some form of that has been in use in the concrete paver installation world for 27 years now, I think, in the US. But then there are a couple other things. So not only that, two of the other main differences are you're going to have permanent spacers. So that's going to look something like this little plastic riser, but not as thick, right? So something that rests right on the bedding layer. And then you're going to have joint material other than cementitious grout. So there are options there. You can have a polymeric sand. There are some two-part epoxy options that have a little bit of flexibility to them. You can sweep in regular sand. You're just going to have to maintain it over time. You can sweep in a small chip stone, like a number 8 stone, if your spacer bar is wide enough. Or if it's over a permeable base, an open graded aggregate base, just leave it unjointed and let it drain freely. But yes, great question on perimeter containment. I do have a video that we made for Hardscape North America, virtual Hardscape North America, that happened back in January. I'd be happy to share with you, Jim, if you want to push it out to the mailing list. It's completely non-proprietary, way less proprietary than I made the last handful of slides on this. I apologize. But it was for, you know, an industry association event. So it's all totally fair, not a commercial for anybody.
So all of you will be sent a thank you for attending. If you'd like to just reply to that for that video, I will make sure that we get it to you. Phil and I will get that video to any of you that would like to see that. I do want to mention one thing what I did say about infomercial, because I want you to know there are many city material companies in our industry that would work with these products.
Mhm.
There are other products that you can use for outdoor pavers. But I do want to thank Daltile for coming on and enlightening us for all of the information that Phil gave us today. It was really great. Phil, we don't really have any more questions. It's amazing. You must have done a fabulous job and presenting this. And I just want everyone to know thank you. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I know it takes time out of your busy day, and everybody's really busy. So thank you. Phil, I'll be in touch with you soon. Everybody, we have our next webinar. It's coming up, let's see, when is it? It's October 12th. So you'll be getting an invite for that soon. Again, Phil, thank you. Everybody, have a great week and weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.